Well, that made me cry. Ooh. What are your favorite books?
What are my favorite books? The Bible. Just kidding.
Hello. Welcome to Wild Geese. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Childther.
Today we're joined by my mom. She's literally the most famous person in the world.
Bow down, bitches.
Yes. Do that.
Okay, we've got our Prosecco, and we just had brunch, so.
And 6 cocktails between the two of us.
Okay, Mom, ground rules. If you're going to talk, you have to wait until I give you the mic.
Okay. Stick on your tooth. Fix your toothies.
Anyways,
You're fine.
the lipstick is gone.
It's gone.
Okay, so yeah, we're 3 drinks in already, and then we just poured more Prosecco. So this is Drunk Herstory. With Mom, we're going to learn about her herstory. How do you feel about that?
I don't think anyone cares, but whatevs.
Okay, so first of all, there are some allegations against you. Basically, I look like my uncle. Tell them the history of my dad and my uncle.
So I met your uncle first, and everyone in choir had a crush on him.
By the way, you can hold the mic.
Everyone had a crush on your uncle. I am not the only one. And there's a very strong likelihood that I was a follower and just was like, well, if everyone else likes him, I should like him too, right? So anyway, everyone in high school choir liked your uncle. And that's it. And so I had a crush on him, but then I ultimately dated and married your dad, who was cute and funny.
So you met them both in high school choir.
Well, I met your dad at the library at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Dad doesn't read, so that doesn't check out.
Ask Aunt Trina. She'll tell you that that is true. I met him in the library because all the nerds hung out from 7 a.m. until 8:30 until the bell rang.
Okay, but then you guys were in swingers together.
Yes, but I was in swingers with Uncle Bud before I was in swingers with Dad.
Tell the people what swingers is.
Swingers is the very unfortunate name of the show choir of the high school that I went to. It was named Swingers in the 70s and remained that until the 80s.
There's nothing ironic about show choir. His world will go on.
Now it's called Velocity or something because they realized what a problematic name that was. So yeah, I was in show choir with Uncle Bud first.
So when Glee came out, did you feel represented?
Yes, Glee was amazing because it was very accurate.
Okay, and
Can you tell the people about the bitterness that you harbor in your heart?
What are you talking about? Talk about Cinderella.
my mom has a little bit of baggage about Cinderella, which is hilarious because Cinderella was my princess growing up. That's the one that I was obsessed with.
Cinderella sucks.
All right, you heard it here first.
Cinderella, specifically Rogers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, ruined my life and made me
Question my worth as a human.
for a very long time. Anyway,
You have to give us more information than that.
so I desperately wanted to be the lead in the musical my senior year in high school, but I was not cast as the lead. In fact, I wasn't even cast as the not lead. I was recast in a part that was a male part because I guess they didn't know what to do with me. So instead of getting Cinderella, even though I was called back for Cinderella and I was called back for the stepmother, I didn't get either one. And they were like, well, we got to put her somewhere. So let's turn the chef into a cook. So I got one line and it was, Your Majesty.
What do you mean the chef into a cook? Is chef a man?
Chef was a male position in the Rodgers and Hammerstein version of Cinderella.
So is cook a feminine word?
That is my understanding.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that distinction.
I'm over it.
She keeps saying things when the microphone is not on her and the microphone is not going to pick up on what she's saying when the microphone is not on her.
I'm over it.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, it really calls back to the time that I was the sausage curl girl in Beauty and the Beast. And also the time that I was Mama Bear in Into the Woods, which is not even a part that exists.
It doesn't.
So did you get me into musical theater because you wanted to traumatize me?
No, but okay. I didn't want to traumatize you, but I wanted you to fix my history.
Oh.
Partly because, okay, the truth is Anna was infinitely and more naturally more talented than me. She had more confidence. She had a better voice, and she had a lot more charisma on stage than I did. I was the kid who probably should have pretended like she was singing in the shower for the talent show.
That's not true. You have a beautiful singing voice, but if you would like to continue complimenting me, I would love that. Did you listen to the Caleb Huron episode with his mom?
You made me, and I enjoyed it immensely because I had never listened to Caleb Huron before. It was awesome.
Yeah, shout out to Caleb Huron. He's hilarious. Go listen to his podcast, So True, but he had his mom on, and he basically opened up the conversation by being like, so like, what's your favorite part about being my mother? So mom, like, what's your favorite part about being my mother? Like, what do you like really love about me?
So I love that you're cute, and I birthed you, so therefore I birthed something cute. I think that you are, that's it. That's the only thing I like. I think you're incredibly smart and discerning. I think you're brave. I don't think at your age I could have moved to New York City and been like,
Yeah, Texas is garbage. I'm getting the hell out of here and never coming back.
I don't know. I think you're real brave. And I am just very in awe of your ability to leave. Even though that meant leaving me, I am very proud of you that you don't need me. And I mean, I wish you did, but whatevs. Anyway, I don't know. I think you're hysterical, and I think everyone should think you're hysterical. Right? She's so funny.
Okay, period. Like, that's so nice. I love that you leave.
I'm glad you got the fuck out of here.
Me too. Okay, so mom, like, do you believe in God?
God, he's coming out. Why, yes. There is a man who's sort of recently come into my life, and that man is Jesus Christ.
So I believe there is an entity that is bigger than me. I think we call that entity God. I am not an atheist. I am not agnostic. I don't think that this universe really supports that humans are the be all and end all. And I don't believe there's like a human-like creature that created all of us. So I believe in God in terms of something is bigger than me. Does that make sense? Yeah. But I believe that whatever that is isn't controlling and isn't like a deity. I believe that we're all connected as beings and living organisms, and our purpose in this universe is to be good and kind and supportive and caring and just connected. And if we call that God, then that's fine. I'm down.
Have you ever heard of pantheism?
Indeed, I have. No! God damn it!
Sorry, guys, I'm burping because I'm drinking Prosecco.
Topo Chico and Prosecco will make you belch.
Okay, so you have heard of pantheism. Oh, what do you think?
So when I was a kid, after my grandfather was an Episcopal priest, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he died, my dad decided to study to be an atheist.
What? I didn't know that atheism was something you studied for.
I don't get it either, but that is what he told me, that he was actually studying atheism to become an atheist. I'm probably not saying it right. Whatever. Anyway, so my dad was on the verge of atheism, but my mom, who had been raised Southern Baptist, discovered the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Oak Cliff. And their belief is basically the universe is too big for one dogma to be right. And so here I was at the ripe old age of 8, being taken to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Oak Cliff. And there were Christians, atheists, agnostics, Wiccans, who I had never been exposed to, all the things, like probably some Jewish people, probably some Muslim people, just people who basically agreed that there's no way on earth one dogma could be right. And so I learned a lot at that point. And so that's kind of been the foundation of my spirituality. Even though I've come back to the Episcopal Church for the community and for the liturgy, I think to me, God is God. There's a God, but God is more of a thread and a connection than a deity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I agree. So to give a little bit of context into this episode, last year on Christmas, I gifted my mom something that was basically homework for her, which is hilarious. But we have a new granddaughter / niece in the family. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. Wait, I feel like we should scoot over so that we're in the frame better.
You are so close to me right now.
Okay. But yeah, so last year we had a new baby in the family and I was like, oh my God, my mom is a grandma now. She should put all of her stories in one place so that my little baby niece can have it when she's old and hear all of my mom's stories. The funny thing is my mom has maybe answered 5 of these questions. So basically it's this thing called Storyworth that emails her questions and she answers them, and then it creates a book with all of her answers. It is still a good idea, but I did realize after gifting it that it is actually just gifting homework for someone.
No. So the problem is in a former life, I fancied myself a bit of a writer. I thought I was pretty eloquent and interesting.
You are?
I took a lot of creative writing classes when I was in college and thought I was pretty good at it. In fact, I have made some starts at novels here and there. In fact, my last year working at Aetna US Healthcare.
Sorry, y'all. I work in the healthcare business.
I started a romance novel that was not terrible. I mean, it was bad. It was a romance novel, but it wasn't terrible. It was kind of interesting, and my coworkers thought it was cool. It's on a floppy disk somewhere in the basement. So I'm kind of a perfectionist. I overthink it. Sorry.
All right. Well, the podcast is the perfect place to just spew shit because a podcast is just talking. I love writing too, but yeah, you can get stuck in perfectionism. But the great thing about podcasts is that we're literally just shooting the shit. So I'm going to ask my mom some of these questions that she did not, in fact, answer for this silly little gift last year, and then Cora can have this as a podcast instead of a book. And she'll also have the book because you have answered some of the questions, but she'll also have a recording of your beautiful voice.
But I also paid the $60 to extend my Storyworth for a few months. And then I added a goal to my Finch, which is another app that Anna told me about, to write a Storyworth once a week. So I'm very competitive with Finch, and I don't want to screw up my, what are they called, streaks. So I'm going to write.
For anybody listening that doesn't know what Finch is a productivity app, basically, that helps you grow a bird. You name the bird, and you give the bird a little home, and you dress the bird up and whatever. But in order to get points, you have to do your little self-care tasks. Hello?
I told Tracy Banks, shout out, that you were making me do an episode and no one cared. And she was like, I can't wait because she loves you.
That's the thing. My mom keeps saying that nobody is going to care about this episode, but something she doesn't understand is how obsessed all of my friends are with her and how obsessed all of her friends are with her. So somebody is going to care about this episode.
One person.
Frankie, sit down.
Frankie's like, this is my chair.
So what was your dream job when you were a little girl? Like high school?
I remember thinking I really wanted to be a pediatrician. I know, that's bonkers, isn't it? Because I wasn't smart enough to be a pediatrician. But I can remember going to the doctor's office and being like, I like figuring out what's going on with these people. I always thought it was fun to be around tiny humans and figuring out what's making their ears hurt. I had asthma as a young person, and I wanted to figure out why, and I wanted to figure out how to fix it. And I wasn't really put in a position to figure it out. And fortunately, I grew out of it. But it was one of those things where as a young person, I was like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have the tools to figure out what's going on in the human body, especially for tiny humans, and to help them feel better? Because I can remember going to soccer practice as a little kid and being like, I am literally going to die because my lungs have closed, and no one doing anything about it. And laying in my bed at night thinking, I will not wake up. So I went real dark there. And I never even told my parents that. I don't know how I survived. But anyway, Dr. Sandusky was my pediatrician as a kid. And I just remember loving her and just thinking she was the coolest human and being like, that's the kind of doctor I want to be.
So when did you decide, no, that's not for you? Was it like science class or something?
I was kind of a dumb kid. Or I was told I was dumb. Thank you, Mrs. Archibald.
You know, there's only one person in this world who can tell you what you are. Me? No, me, Sue Sylvester.
I'm calling people out. I really was not led to believe I was very smart. This is probably just a product of the 70s, and I was a girl. I was not supposed to understand math. I was not supposed to understand science, and I believed it. And also, when I was 43, I was diagnosed with ADHD, inattentive, but hyper-focused, thanks to my darling son, who was also diagnosed with the same thing. That didn't exist in the 70s and 80s. You were just a dumb, lazy person. And I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. It just is. It is what it is. It's what we were told in the 70s and 80s. You were dumb. You were lazy. There was nothing. Neurodivergence didn't exist back then. So that was the message I got. And I believed it. And it wasn't until I got to college and got some professors that were creative and interesting and engaging and subject matter that mattered to me. That was interesting. And suddenly I was like, wait a minute, I can stay on task because this is something that I dig. So anyway, the fact of the matter is I wasn't considered smart enough to be in any kind of advanced math or science class. To this day, though, if I have friends that have symptoms that are a little weird, I'm digging deep, and I'm trying to figure it out. Same for myself. I think the medical field is very fascinating, and I would love to have had the direction to go further into that, but I didn't. So it was more like be a teacher or be a secretary, and that's where I went.
That's so interesting because the medical field was never interesting to me. I was highly grossed out by anything medical for most of my life. But that is so true that they were like, be a teacher, be a secretary.
I know that it was not interesting, like it grossed you out, but you are the first to go down a Google deep dive rabbit trail. This kid will call me up and be like,
Do I have multiple sclerosis?
and it's more like, no, dude, you've been sleeping on your shoulder wrong.
That's just because I have anxiety, not because I like medical things. I hate anything medical, to be honest. But I do have a pretty severe anxiety, so I will be asking about it. But also, you're the person that I ask about it because, like you just said, you will go on a deep dive. So I'll be like, Mom, I have this symptom. And you'll be like, click-clacking on your keyboard with me. I'm not the only one going down WebMD.
Yeah, but I don't have baggage about it. I don't have baggage. I'm like, we're going to figure this out.
Anyway, next question. Ooh. What do you admire most about your father?
My dad, he has been through a lot. He has overcome a lot. He has learned a lot. He's a storyteller. And I think I get that from him. Dad has always been a hard worker, but I also think, and he doesn't, I don't know if he knows this, but I really think my dad is neurodivergent. I think he has ADHD. I think he is someone who is very creative. He went from being like a retail manager who had a lot of great opportunities in the retail world. He owned a couple of retail businesses that were very successful, but then he went into construction, and that was a whole different world. To go from being like the manager of a big old JCPenney's to building buildings, like that's wild to me. I just think that my dad is a very smart human, and he had kids that were pains in the ass. I guess this is a long way of saying that my dad is a very dedicated, loving father who would do anything for his kids. And I think that he endeavored to do better by his kids, to be closer to his kids. He's got 3 kids from his first marriage and 2 from his second. He has raised us each with an open mind. Like, he taught us all to be good humans and to think for ourselves. And I think that's something that I tried really hard to pass down to you guys, is that your brains are your brains. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I do. It's about looking at the world with a critical eye and figuring out what you think is right. And I think that my dad really instilled that in me, that I don't have to follow the crowd and I can think for myself. And I think he has led a life where he has not followed the beaten path. You know, like he's done a lot of things that are very, very basic. Like he's owned a home, he's married, he's had kids, but he has taken risks and he has supported causes that are not popular. And so I think, I mean, I just admire that he has taught us all, and he always has been his own person. He doesn't care if he offends you. My dad is a yellow dog Democrat. He will tell you he's a yellow dog Democrat. And he doesn't care who he pisses off with his beliefs. And he's from Texas, so that will tell you something. I just appreciate that he's unapologetic.
Yeah, Granddad called me on my birthday, and he was like, Anna, what's the point of your... No, he said, what's the meaning of your life? Or like, what's the point of your life? Or something like that. And I was like, Granddad, oh my God. I was like, I don't know. But then he kind of went on about how the meaning of life is to proliferate life, I think is how he said it. But I don't think that's how he worded it. But it was like, the meaning of life is to bring more life. And I thought I was like, Granddad is telling me I need to get pregnant right now. But then he qualified it and he was like, and I'm not saying you need to have children, but like, you know what, in some way you got to bring life to life. And I was like, okay, that's better. That's better. Sorry, Granddad, I am not ready to bring a child into this world in this moment. Not today, sir.
So my dad can get really deep. There was a time in my life when I got dumped. And actually,
Is this going to be the answer to this question? The next question is, what are the most important lessons you learned from your parents? Okay, so this might be one of the questions or one of the answers.
okay. So it wasn't when I got dumped. It was the night I got engaged.
The first time.
I came home and I slept on the couch because this was winter break during my senior year in college. And I slept on the couch. And at one point, I remember my dad coming in and sitting in the chair and waking up and him just kind of looking at me and being like, so are you happy? And at that point, I didn't know that he knew that my fiance at that point had proposed. I didn't know. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, so are you happy? And I was like, yes, I think so. I mean, I've just gotten engaged. Yeah, obviously that makes me happy. And he's like, or would you say you're content? And I was like, well, I don't know the difference. And he said, just answer the question. Are you happy or are you content? And I can remember kind of thinking about it for a minute and being like, well, I'm definitely content. And him saying, why would you settle for being content when you could be happy?
That's interesting because I think that contentment is just a version of happiness. It's not the only version of happiness, but I do think contentment sometimes is a more sustainable version of happiness than happiness, because happiness comes in fits and bursts, but contentment and peace can be something that stays for longer, maybe, than happiness.
I don't think you're wrong, but I think he was concerned that I, as a 20-something-year-old, was settling for choosing contentment, which was version of life that I like. That is all I knew as far as he was concerned, was contentment versus happiness. I didn't know the difference, but I think that he was trying to point out to me that you are 21 years old. 21.
That's
and you don't know what else is out there. At the time, I didn't know. In fact, at the time, I was pissed. I was like, you are shitting on this really special moment for me. I was newly engaged. I was actually on cloud nine. It was what I wanted. It was what I had kind of been taught by the culture of my university, of my life. I grew up in Texas. I was going to a small rural university where my sorority really magnified girls who managed to get engaged before graduation. We were led to believe that the epitome of our existence was to have a candle pass before we graduated. And a candle pass is something that was really popular in sororities. I don't know if they do it anymore. I know they didn't do it in NYU. But okay, so when I was in my sorority, and I think they still do it, but I'm not sure, we would do this thing where we would circle around and we would sing our sorority song. And the first pass was for sisterhood. We'd pass this circle around and we'd sing a song. The first time around was just to celebrate sisterhood. The second time around, if you blew it out, you had received what we called a drop, but like now it's more called a lavalier, meaning you were given the drop of your boyfriend's fraternity. And then the third time around was you got engaged. And then the fourth time around was if you were pregnant. And believe it or not, that happened because we had many members of our sorority who were already married and were expecting at that point. So this was really celebrated. Your relationship with a significant other was a very big part of your existence in the sorority at the time. I'm not dissing that. It was our culture. It was our time, and it was fun. And that was kind of the path we were told we should be on at the time. This was the late 80s, early 90s. Anyway, to me, I was told that was supposed to make me happy. Not content, happy. That was the path I was supposed to be on. And I was on it. And I had this engagement ring, and I was happy about it. I was very happy about it. But my dad wanted to point out happiness doesn't have to look like what you think it's supposed to look like. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. At the time, I was like, you're just being an asshole. You want to make me feel shitty about something that I'm happy about. Like, I didn't appreciate that my dad had been through it with my mom. And then he was married to, his new wife, my stepmom, who I considered a friend, who he had a good relationship with. I didn't understand any of that. I didn't know what happiness meant. I thought that's what it was. And it was. I was a happy person. I have had happiness. But looking back 30 years later, I can say there was a lot of contentedness that I was settling for, that I was, here I am, I'm an adult. I need to get on this path. And I think for me, learning that from my dad, learning that there was a difference between happiness and contentedness was a pretty deep lesson that I didn't appreciate for a very long time. So that's it.
Is there any that you want to impart from your mom?
So my mom died when I was 15, and we didn't have a lot of deep conversations. But I do remember she didn't intentionally impart this knowledge on me. But mom had some mental illness issues that she battled that were not understood at the time, that were not accepted at the time. They were more taboo. But I remember when I was a freshman in high school, a friend of mine attempted suicide. It was a swallowing of a bottle of Tylenol. It wasn't literally, it wasn't going to kill her. It was going to jack up her kidney. If it had been any other set of pills, it would have. But, being young people, we don't understand those things. Well, that friend called me after she swallowed the pills.
Wow.
And I can remember my mom was in the house and telling my mom that this had happened and that I was on the phone with her. And she said, hang up the phone, call 911, send them to her house, and never talk to her again. And I didn't understand. I was like, why could you be so heartless? But I didn't know my mom's story. And that night, I'm a freshman in high school. My mom tells me, I'm like, how do you know? And she says, because I'm her. I've been there and you can't help her. And the fact was that my mom had been through some very deep mental health issues. She was bipolar. I didn't know that before that. She told me this that night, that she had actually tried to take her own life at one point. And the message that she got from society and from everyone was that she was unhelpable, that she was unlovable, that what she had done was not forgivable, and that she needed to be on her own, that it was not anyone else's job to fix her or address what she was experiencing. And I mean, a lot of that is that we didn't understand what the chemical imbalance of mental illness is. And I believe by the time she died, she understood that. She understood it wasn't a flaw. It wasn't a character flaw. It was literally a physiological issue that she could not control. But the lesson she taught me that night was you can't help people who have mental illness. And after that, still interacting with this friend of mine who changed schools and went through treatment, and to this day, I think is a thriving human. Like, I've interacted with her a little bit on social media and believe that she has a fulfilling life. High school is hard. And I think all of that taught me that we are all going through something. We are all struggling, whether it is a chemical imbalance or a social interaction or a family situation that is out of our control. We're all going through something, and it's up to us to decide to recognize that. We can choose to be judgmental, or we can choose to recognize that I don't know what's happening in your world. Whether it's an interaction with somebody at a grocery store or whatever, you might be an actual dick. You might be a pure asshole. But it also may be that that morning you had a falling out with someone that you loved and you were just not coping. And so, I mean, I think that's my lesson from my mom, is that we don't always know what's going on in somebody's world. It helps to just stop and think, why is this person acting this way in this moment? I'm not good at that. I'm real bad at it. I'm one of those people that will be like, well, you suck. I hate you. I don't hate anybody really, but I mean, I'm not good at it. But that is something that I think she imperfectly tried to impart to me, was that we don't have any control over how other people are interacting with the universe, but we have control over how we respond. And that, I don't think she intended for that to be the lesson. I really think she thought that for me, it would be better for me to walk away from that friendship. But what she ended up teaching me was that there's more to it than what meets the eye.
Love you, Anna. Her name is Anna.
She was Anna. Anna Faye.
I was named after her. Who are your heroes?
I don't think I have any. Is that lame? I don't know. There are people that I admire, like Debbie Reynolds was a treasure. And I think that...
Who's that?
Debbie Reynolds, the star of Singing in the Rain. Hello?
Sorry, I'm not good with names.
I'm a failure.
I've got 2 words for you. Josh Groban.
Who is Josh Groban?
Who is Josh Groban? Kill yourself!
I really was introduced to her by my friend Kim. She was in The Unsinkable Molly Brown. And I don't know, I just loved her very uplifting and outgoing and hilarious countenance. She was also really cute. She was Carrie Fisher's mom.
Okay.
Did you watch, Billy Lord? You know who Billy Lord is? That's her grandmother.
People say that I look like Billy Lord.
You kind of do look like Billy Lord. Anyway, Debbie Reynolds, I just think was like all-American, beautiful, funny, kind of tortured. Like, I don't know, Eddie Fisher's a dick for doing what he did to her. Hello. But I don't know if hero is the right word. I admire her a lot. I think that if I wanted to like have a parallel life to someone, that might be fun. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I wish I had her brain. I wish I had her intellect. I just think she was the coolest. I can't like express how much I admired her and how much it made me sad when she died. Like when she died, I was truly crushed, and so many people just didn't understand why that mattered in so many ways. And I can't even explain it, but I don't know. Heroes is a weird concept.
You have to be your own hero. The concept of heroes is for Marvel. Clink.
What are some of your special talents?
This one is real deep. I can touch my tongue with my nose.
Me too.
And I can wiggle my ears.
I can't do that.
You can't wiggle your ears? It's because you don't have giant monster ears.
I think they're cute. They make you look like a fairy. What is one of your favorite memories of your mother?
So my mom died when I was 15. That's
not our favorite.
It's not our favorite topic. And so that is over 35 years ago, almost 40 years ago that my mom died. I remember my mom and I would go to Wyatt's cafeteria. If you don't know what Wyatt's Cafeteria is, it's a good old-fashioned cafeteria where you go through the line and you choose what you want and you get to the end and you're like, I love all of this. But Mom and I would go to Wyatt's Cafeteria and every time we would get the same thing. A half chicken fried steak, broccoli and cheese, mashed potatoes with gravy, and a chocolate icebox pie. And the chocolate icebox pie was the dream. Like, it's like,
I don't even know what that means. A chocolate ice box pie?
you're going to have to Google that. I'll show you. It's chocolate icebox pie is the perfect dessert. Anyway, Mom and I would go to Wyatt's. We'd do this thing and we would just sit there and you just sit there and you talk. And my mom and I could talk about like nothing. We would talk about MTV, or we would talk about her teaching at St. Elizabeth's. You know, she would teach at an elementary school called St. Elizabeth's. And it's nothing special. We would just sit. We would sit in a booth at Wyatt's Cafeteria, and then we would go there was a shop next door called Gift Potpourri, and we'd walk around and we would look at all of these silly gifts, and we would never buy anything because my mom was a teacher and she couldn't afford anything. But we would talk about what we would want to buy if we did. And I mean, I know that sounds lame, but my best memories with my mom were not unusual. They were just the best random moments, like just hanging out. And I miss it. Like, I slept with her every night for the last year and a half.
Oh my God, I'm crying. Okay, well, that made me cry. Ooh. What are your favorite books?
What are my favorite books? The Bible. Just kidding. If you haven't read it. My favorite books, I'm going to say, and it's going to be so cliche, and I'm really sorry, Pride and Prejudice, baby. I just love that book. I love everything about it. I love that Elizabeth Bennet takes no shit. Like, she is given...
You just said Elizabeth Benefit?
Bennet. Did I say benefit? Elizabeth. Edit that out. Eliza Bennet takes no shit. She says, you may be the richest man I've ever met, and you may have just proposed to me, but no, I am not going to settle for being content. I am going to settle for being a spinster because no one else will have me.
And also, you fucked up my sister's happiness, so how dare you?
I can read that book over and over and over again, and it always makes me feel something. And to me, literature needs to make you feel stuff. Not only that, but it's well written. Don't go reading some of those books that everyone else loves right now.
Colleen Hoover. If you're reading Colleen Hoover, get help. Love you, get help. I'm not calling you out. You don't read Colleen Hoover.
I've read one Colleen Hoover book and it made me so disappointed and sad. But all of my friends loved it. So something's obviously wrong with me, right?
No. I love you all, but if you're reading Colleen Hoover, please take a literature class.
And you will figure out what's gone wrong with your life.
All right. Well, we're almost at 30 minutes just on this recording, so I think we have to wrap it up. I love you guys. Any last imparting words that you want to give to my audience? This is your moment. Don't fuck it up.
Don't settle for being content. Look for happy. Love y'all.
Period. Bye. See you all next week. Or no, not next week. The week after that. We're doing bi-weekly now. This video stuff is way more work than just audio.